And we go on now to Chicago Jew, who is a long-time JTFer, who writes, and I quote, "I am pro-Chinese vaccine, anti-mandatory vaccine, anti-mask, anti-vaccine passport. I'm vehemently against any business, including the government and employers, forcing me to wear a mask or asking me for proof that I've been vaccinated. It's no one's business," unquote. Chicago Jew, I disagree with you. Because the unvaccinated are the ones that are making people sick. And my mother got infected from someone who was unvaccinated, who believed the propaganda and was unvaccinated. And my mother paid with her life. And I mean, we've had a situation here where over 4.5 million people worldwide, at least over 4.5 million people have died because of COVID-19. At least. And the figure is almost certainly much higher, because you have a tremendous deliberate undercount in China, India, Russia, and other countries. They don't give you accurate counts. So it's a much higher figure. They admit that it's over 4.5 million. They admit this. Even with the official phony undercount, it's over 4.5 million. So it's probably about 10 million, maybe more. But millions of people have died. In the United States alone, there have been 675,000 deaths. 675,000 deaths. Tens of millions of Americans have been infected. Many of them are still have symptoms and are ill and have problems. And 675,000 have died. If you want to commit suicide, it's a big question as whether or not we should allow somebody to commit suicide. Under Jewish law, people are not allowed to commit suicide, and we're not allowed to allow them to. But it's even worse when you're willing to endanger others. Unvaccinated people pose a danger to everyone around them. Unvaccinated people are the reason we still have this virus. California, that left-wing commie state, but nevertheless a state where they had an intensive vaccination program, now has the lowest COVID infection rate, hospitalization rate, death rate, the lowest, all the stats. California now is the lowest in the country because they had a very vigorous vaccination program. Texas and Florida, where the governors there are saying, oh, we can't have masks and other mandatory things, that's where the virus is the strongest and the most deadly. And places like Mississippi and Alabama, where there are a lot of unvaccinated people, is where the death rate and the hospitalization rate is the highest. It's the unvaccinated who are driving this virus. In Israel, they just got in fact, just yesterday, not yesterday, but I don't know if it was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, they just came out with another report that 85% of the people in Israel who are hospitalized with coronavirus are unvaccinated. 85% are unvaccinated, even though the unvaccinated are only 15% of Israel's adult population. They're 15% of the adult population has refused to get the vaccination, and 85% of the people that are hospitalized. I mean, there's no question. There's no question that they're the ones who are creating this illness. And the problem is, they're not only infecting other unvaccinated people, they're infecting the vaccinated as well. Because even someone who's vaccinated is under risk if they're really constantly, or if they're around somebody who's not going to wear a mask and not going to socially distance and not going to do anything, they're creating a risk. That's creating a risk. And even vaccinated people should wear masks. And there's no question that masks are effective. There's no question that in countries like Taiwan, where they traditionally wore masks for years, the rate of hospitalization and death was much lower because they wore masks, even before we had the vaccines. The masks are effective. That there's no question about it. One of the reasons we have infections is because people go to gatherings where people are not masked. You say it's no one's business, but it is my business if you're going to put my life in jeopardy. And if I have a business, if I have a store, if I have a grocery store or a supermarket or a bank or any other place, a drugstore, any other place. If I have a store and you're going to come in and infect me and infect my employees with a deadly virus, you don't have a right to do that. And I have a right to say, no, you're not coming into my store unless you wear a mask or unless you've been vaccinated. I have a right to do that. And the government does have a right to say to its employers, to its employees, you are not going to endanger your fellow workers, and you're not going to endanger other people when you deal with the public. This is a matter of life and death. And by the way, we have requirements now for children with vaccinations. Children who are not vaccinated against the flu, who don't get their flu shots and they don't get other vaccinations, are not allowed to go to school for many years now, because we know what the consequences were when they weren't vaccinated. So this is not new. So I disagree with you, Chicago Jew.